Here we are on my I Love Learning podcast on Halloween. And Blake Lappan, the co-founder, superhero, superstar of all the companies that Blake has, is here with me today. Spot on. Um, and I am so excited to have Blake on today. He's going to lift our spirits. Blake, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you're passionate about?
All right, lifting spirits. I got this. Big shoulders. I come from a just middle class family. Didn't want for much, but didn't have everything by any means, and always had a eye for how to make things better. Since I was younger, and that's kind of my passion. I believe is beyond people and anything to do with people. Is just looking around to see how we can make things better for everyone around. I've been an
Oh,
entrepreneur since forever, kind of. My dad's like, "Hey, you want a new bike? Well, you're gonna have to go rake some leaves or something." I've been kind of taught that from the beginning. Definitely not an entrepreneur in a. My family said go do
wow.
it because my family did it. They just taught me that I can do a service and ask for money. Basically.
Yeah, like
Uh,
mowing the lawns. I like to mow the lawns, believe it or not. I'm a pretty good lawnmower. Although I don't have the time to do it now, but I used to love to do it. It actually relaxed me. So I learned, I didn't do it for other people though, so I could have made money, I guess. But that's awesome. If you don't know Blake, you should know Blake. He is the most incredible, kind, passionate person that I have like bumped into, just like happened to bump into you at the Trimble conference. So I love that. So Blake, tell us. So with your journey and your passion, has there ever been like a time that something stood in the way of your passion, or there was a roadblock? Because look, I started my podcast because people were telling me, like, Gina, I mean, I've lost my passion. And so like everyone has hurdles, right?
yeah, for sure. Um, I think if I can look back from today, my answer is my biggest hurdle has always been myself. I've
Yes.
often been in my own way, not knowing
Mm-hmm.
it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having to, again, being that person that kind of looks at everything with a could it be better or different perspective or perception, I guess, whichever word I need to use there. I've kind of figured that you once you can kind of catch on to what you're doing to get in your own way, that you're limitless after that. Um, I've had some business ups and downs, no doubt. So there's some business success stories followed by bankruptcy, followed by rebuild it from the ground up type of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
those are obviously very big challenges.
Yeah.
But it's not what happens to us, is what we do about it. And that's kind of the way I've lived without knowing how to say it until I heard one of the influencers I watch to get better every day said it. It's a really
Yeah.
it's a way we live should live every day, right? It's just understand that look, this happened and it's not okay. Even all the way to the
Right.
passing of a relative, it's not okay. But it
Right.
is all about where we go from there and how long we sulk in the in between. And
Yeah.
I think me being in my own way is probably my biggest the reason I'm
Mm.
not further along than I am now, right? Is but learning that has been really fun. And
Hmm.
not looking back and saying, my last 15 years were a waste. Nah, no, they weren't. I
Right.
wish I would have learned faster, but they were not a waste. They got me here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
been kind of a school of hard knocks person on all the fronts, from personal development to professional development to entrepreneurship to all of it. And now I've learned how the value coming out of those roadblocks, if you will, learning the value of connections and being able to move forward regardless of how much you feel like you can't or won't be able to if.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the truth? Like, we all hold ourselves back. It's having that courage to really want to move forward. And what was it for you? So you talk about you held yourself back. What inspired you to want to continue to move towards your passion, or what was it that helped you get over that, get over yourself, get over you holding yourself back?
It's that's a hard to pinpoint one thing. I think willingness to learn and learn how to find that one thing, I guess, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
any sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in the deepest darkest right after bankruptcy,
Mhm.
I'm utilizing the free content that's out there to kind of open my mind to stuff and find out if there's something that could help me learn to get out of this. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of bad decisions in those moments too. From leaning
Mhm.
on substances to get my mind away, all the way to just not getting up and doing what I could have been doing with that time. Um,
Mhm.
but just slowly but surely improving my understanding and knowledge of what's out there, and as especially learning neuroscience. When I found neuroplasticity and it's like, whoa, what, wait a minute, because I
Yeah.
kind of felt that way inside, but I noticed a lot of people around me were not that way. And once
Uh-huh.
I learned that, that kind of hyper tracked this whole how do I get out of it kind of thing. It
Mhm.
made me want to learn more and more and more. It's like, oh my gosh, they've proven what you can feel, mind over matter, if
Mhm.
you will. And that really got me excited. So I stumbled on that by, again, putting myself out there and trying to learn more, and not just saying
Mhm.
this is what I got. So I'll just sit here in that.
Mhm.
Right. That's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
something I've never been good at.
I'm so proud
Just
of you. I mean, honestly, because I feel like there's been people that I've known and talked to that just can't get through that. They don't have the courage like you've had to really work through that and know that you can help yourself and you can help reconnect and you can help and continue to grow and learn, And I think that is, and I don't think, I know that's so powerful from a neuroscience standpoint, but also just it makes you feel better, right?
yeah.
I mean, just that ability to do that. And what is it that keeps you happy? I mean, whenever I see you, Blake, it's like you're a bright light. You're a bright light for me. I can't wait to see you at Freightworks in a few weeks, but in person, but you're a bright light. What keeps you happy and wanting to continue to learn and grow?
Man, pot meat kettle over there, on the bright light thing. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many things that push me, but just wanting to be a better servant to others, better wanting to be a better
Mm,
me every day, wanting to be more controlled me every day, um, because I want to do big things, but it's hard to do big things on a foundation that's crumbly, and
mm,
again, it's just part of that learning. It's just I think I'm wired a little bit differently. So I think
mm,
to speak to everyone as if they're wired like me, not that I'm one-off special, but I'm definitely a different type of wiring, because I do feel I've felt that neuroplasticity happening and realizing it can happen, and done those habits, where you really can get in a groove, and it does completely change the way you approach stuff. And so
yeah.
I recognized that stuff early, but for those that really struggle to get to the how do I get out of here, I would just say there's always a way. Start with
Yeah.
that. Start with that. It's not a I can't, because of the block, 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 this, that, and the other. There's always a way.
Yeah.
And it may not
Right.
be pretty, and it may not be quick, and it's definitely not going to be
Mhm.
easy. You know, to
Mm-mm.
do hard things is probably the only tattoo I would ever get if I ever got one. Is we have to do the hard things, and it's like 90% of our life
Yes.
is that. To get to the 10%
Yeah.
of chill.
Gosh, no kidding, right? Like I feel like most days I get up and they're hard, It's like
Hmm.
there's hard day.
You
You don't
better
have to
believe
go
it.
run a marathon, right? You have to have a difficult conversation. You have to, deal with a loved one being sick. You have to there's so many things that are hard. And like this week I have a theme on my podcast and it's joy. And like you think I'm like, there's things that you go through, but to find the moments of joy, like you said, are just so critical and powerful. Like this week, trick or treat, it's like that stresses some people out. It gives them anxiety. It's a hard time. Maybe you can't, it stresses you out about costumes, like all these things. But I have these little cards. I just happen to have one here. I gave one out. This says "You're awesome." My team had a choice. They could pick a trick or a treat, and these were the tricks. You could just give a card to someone and make them feel joy. So it's finding the joy.
Yes, yes, because we're all that in our hearts. Before our traumas, before our experiences, before our whack perceptions that we have, or perspectives. Sorry, I never know which way to use those words, but before our whack way we look at things, because it's our
uh,
way. Before all
Uh-huh.
that, like, we're pure as gold, and all we want to do is
Yeah.
be there for one another and help one another
Yeah.
survive, right? And so we all have it in
Yeah.
us. I refuse to believe that everyone doesn't have it at our core somewhere in there. But when it's stacked up
Mhm.
with the world's against me because so many things have happened to me that I feel that way, when it's stacked up with these um, real traumas that have happened, it's very difficult if you don't really be very intentional about looking at those things differently, and because it
Right.
will drown you.
Absolutely.
A bankrupt person coming from an 800 credit score person tried to drown me. But my identity is
Mm.
not what my freaking score is on how well I borrow other people's money. you know, when I
Right.
realized that was
Right.
it's like, that's not my identity. And not that I was touting it as my identity, but those types of
Right.
things we think matter don't. And half the
Mhm.
time we're walking around trying to impress people we don't even like.
Right, exactly. Well, and I think too that a lot of times we tie our identity to things. Like our identity, like you said, is our work, or our identity is, a certain, like I'm a father, whatever it is. But like when you look inside and you find your true being and your true self, that's what really, really when you can light, and you can light the world. And so I can appreciate that you've gone through those horrific and terrible times at your business and in your life, and that you continue to shine. Because when I see you, it's like I gotta have Blake on my podcast, because every time I see you, like you're spreading goodness to somebody around you. And I just think that is so powerful. And do you think there was something, like, was there something that you learned that helped you? Like, was there something that you learned that left an impact on your thinking to be this way? Or did you just like, did you just decide one day, like, I'm just going to be this way? Like, what was it? Do you know, or do you remember?
From holding a sidewalk when we're and
Mm-hmm.
right around those small things, I noticed that you can somebody walk into a gas station, you're 12 years old and you hold their door, they look at you like you've just done a deed of the month for them, right? And it's why
Mm,
I was doing it. It was just like it seemed like the right thing to do. It wasn't trying to get that reaction, but you see what it can do to people, and I think that's kind of what drives me, is watching the whole entire facial expression change when there's something that small, right?
mm,
And showing that
mm-hmm,
we just as these small acts of kindness that even if it doesn't, I'm not trying to change anything from people, but just remind them that we're here for each other, right? And I do
yeah,
think I've fed off the reaction of that, and not the thank you, but
right.
the just the facial expression, just like the from zombie to normal. I mean, and just for that moment.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know if that answers
Yeah,
your
kindness
question, but that's what came
matters.
to mind when you asked me.
No, it does. I love that. It does, because kindness matters. I mean, you can choose not to be, or you can choose to be. And I think that's so critical, because a lot of times I have to tell you this. I was at a hotel, and I witnessed some people being very unkind to the person behind the desk, and I witnessed the whole thing. And it's like, because they were late and impatient, they took it out on the person who had been working there for hours. And I was thinking, I went up and I said to her, I appreciated her. And I actually, had this great moment with her. And just think about like how easy it is to be kind, you know?
Right,
So
right,
I'm
right.
real.
Like I say, I think that's who we are at our core, all of us. Without our
Mm,
what we're trying to be to other people for other people's view of us, or our traumas that are legit and have to be worked on,
mm,
that's who we are. I do believe that. I
mm,
think when someone drops something in front of you, everyone initially wants to pick it up.
mm,
There's very few people that are like, ah, that sucks. They're gonna.
mm,
And if they do react that way, that's not what they mean. I don't think that's at their core. So,
right.
just belief in what we were designed to be, who we were designed to be
Uh-huh.
for each other,
Hmm.
and seeing that prove out is my why, I think, on that.
Oh, everyone should connect with you. You're really incredible. So this was like several months ago. I had a driver reach out to me, and they said they lost their passion. They're like,
Hmm.
Gina, I lost my passion. Like, I lost my passion. And if you had someone come to you and say that, what advice would you give them? Like if they're at the end of the road and they really don't know where to go, what advice would you give them?
Ooh, that's a I would probably ask a lot of qualifying questions before giving any
Hmm.
advice, but a general advice would be to me, gosh, that's the end of the road makes me think of, there's a lot of folks that feel that way. Um, I would really want to share my stories of where I thought the end of the road was, and say, look, let me show you something. This actually was a bump in the road that turned into a little gold nugget, pun intended, of life, and it turned into something good, or it turned into something that created a filter for me to make my
Uh
life
huh.
smoother.
Uh huh.
Telling stories about me would probably be the best way I could say, help them, because I don't know where they're coming from or how stuck they really are, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Is probably what I'd
Mm-hmm.
say too. It's okay if
Mm-hmm.
you've lost your passion. Have you lost it for everything, or have you lost it for the thing that you
Mm-hmm.
thought you were passionate about? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to change. It's like one
Mm-hmm.
of the few guarantees in life is almost everything's going to change, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to not be passionate about that thing. As if you're talking to a driver, especially if it's truck driving, that is the passion, for example, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
else do you love? What else do you
Mm-hmm.
love? And finding passion is, I assume, is probably pretty difficult if it's not thrown in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that. I don't know the medical
Yeah.
science behind that. If we
Right.
have it in
Mm-hmm.
us. Unfortunately, I'm not educated guest more than I am just a experienced guest, on that. So
No, you're good. You have a lot of experience. Yeah, and there's a lot of science behind creativity and like where it comes from, and how, even the parts of our brain that generate creativity. But creativity doesn't have to be something that is like, oh, I'm gonna go design this painting, or I'm
correct.
gonna, it's just thinking about things in a different way. And there's ways, and I'm excited to share them in my book I'm writing, of like how to stem creativity, because creativity is growth, right? And it is
Hmm.
learning, and it is continuing to build kind of your knowledge and your wealth of experience. So I definitely love this idea, that you say, and there's science to it, so just know that. So
Okay,
you're
good.
good. i
It
do
seems that
i
way.
do want to Yeah, it seems it. So let me ask you. So I started something new this year, and I'm springing this on you, but I know you're ready because you're resilient. But I have been asking guests from my previous show to ask a guest of my next show. And last Friday, I had Adishar Moran on. He's actually an expert therapist for depression and anxiety. He's incredible, by the way. If you don't know him, you should connect with him. But he asked this question of you. He looked you up, and he thought it was really impressive that you owned a company called Spot On. And he just wanted to know, he wanted to ask you what you learned this week and how you plan to pass that on to other people.
Hmm.
Yeah, see, it was a good question he
It
asked.
very Yeah, very, because the ones that you make plans to pass on to other people are rare nuggets, because they're so good.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
hmm. I think you might have stumped me here.
I stumped you. You can think about
Maybe.
it.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Maybe.
of. Well, no, I don't want to do it on a live thing for too long here. So, um, man, I've learned so much. I'm on this just track of learning everywhere, because I'm trying to not be an
Yeah.
operator of my business and be a work
Yeah.
on my business guy. That's a whole nother transition. So a lot of things
Wow.
are
Okay.
being learned.
Yeah.
I would say that I've learned that I have more people in my corner than I thought, and
Aw.
I would tell other people that you should reach out instead of assuming they're going to be able to see the radar going off.
Yeah.
That'd
Gosh,
probably
I
be
love that
what I
you
can
have
come up
that.
with on the fly. Um,
Yeah,
that was
that's
a
a
really
good
good
one.
question. Very, very good question.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that knowing that there's people in your corner, you just have to ask people for help. I've learned
That's it.
that. I ask for help. My team knows I ask for help. Like, I'm not afraid to ask for help because I need help a lot of times. So I think it's important to know that if you have something going on in your life, that you share so you can get help. Because
Yeah, I
otherwise,
spent a
nobody
lot of years
knows.
the other
You
way.
know,
Yes, yep, I share that
yeah,
with you.
nobody knows. Yeah,
Hmm.
you got to share it, even if even if you share it with a stranger. I don't know, share it. I mean, if share what you need, share what you need. Ask for help. I
Yeah,
love that.
goes back to the core of us being helpers. I think we are wanting to
Hmm.
support one another at our core, and so that I just always had a not the good which one is it?
Perspective.
Perspective. Yeah, I didn't have the right
Perspective.
perspective
Hmm.
on what people were willing to do, and that was my pen that I wrote the story with, and refused and
Hmm.
didn't realize I need to like wad that up and look at other ways. So um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
yeah,
like that. So
that would be it.
next
When you're stuck with
Thursday,
your
Blake.
passion, ask people. Yes.
Oh, I like that. Tell people, ask people. Well, I'm going to quote you on that one. Next week, I have Lisa Zarkani on my podcast. She actually is a mental health advocate. She has a podcast as well on mental health. And so I want you to come up with a question. What would you like to ask her next week when she comes on my podcast? And you can try to stump her too, like Adisher stumped you. So we can come up with a question. What question are you going to ask Lisa next week? What should
Oh
I
my
ask
gosh.
her?
And I know you did this because I listened to your stuff, so I knew this and I had it. I didn't write it down, and now it's gone because
Oh,
but that's okay.
that's
I would
okay. You can
say,
come up.
when was
Hmm.
the last time that you caught yourself looking through the wrong from the wrong perspective, and what did you do to change that, and did it stick? You know,
That's really good. I'm trying to think of how I would answer that.
because we have to
That's
realize we're all
yeah.
looking at this from our own looking glass, and it's not right most of the time. The way that
Yeah.
we are framed comes from
Mhm.
things that were our things, and especially
Mhm.
how we choose to see them. It's like it's a
Mhm.
huge tool for passion too, to get out of anything.
Mhm.
Just realizing, hey, the way you see it's probably wrong, right? The way you see it could
Mhm.
probably be adjusted in some way to help you through that not feeling so, XYZ. So, there's
Yeah.
a lot to say there, but that'd be my mine on
I like that. Okay, we're gonna see what she says next week. So I have to listen in and
that.
see how Lisa
I
responds to
shall.
that. The stumper. All right,
I
so I'm
shall.
gonna end the podcast today asking you this question, like, and then you can close after you answer, telling people a final thought and where they can find you. But what does winning mean to you? This podcast season, I did the whole I'm doing the whole season on what does winning mean. So tell us what winning means. Leave us with some great final thoughts and tell people where they can find you.
Okay. Winning to me means that however you find a way to fill your cup, you're making sure
Mm.
that the one cups around you are filling at the same time. I think that's a winning theory. Going at it for yourself and really chasing it is definitely admirable in the way, and that will be the motivation for most. But making sure you're turning around and helping the next one in line, or teaching people as you go and sharing your lessons as you go, and connecting in a way that lets people know you got them if they need you. Again, the example from earlier where I didn't realize what I had until I asked, and
Mhm.
that's I think that's the thought that I have to leave with. Then finding me, LinkedIn is Blake Lappan. The company No Dwell and Spot On. We're doing some really cool things in logistics that has a very human level impact and reason why as well. So if you want to learn more about that, just look me up in those on the LinkedIn is the best way to get me quickly. And love to talk to anybody who's interested in making big changes in industry that have a save marriages kind of result in their
Wow.
implications. So really excited about that. There's a lot of other really good things with it too, but the save marriages
Uh-huh.
is the human element that's very, very real. So we're excited
Wow.
about
I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna talk to you offline. I want to learn more about that. That's interesting. I love the human component and what you do at a human level, Blake. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much because I can feel it and I know that you're just making a difference. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being you. Thank you for always connecting and being there. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for all, likewise to all that stuff, for being such an inspiration, for actually putting your time into putting this stuff out there. I mean, learning is
Mhm.
probably one of the key things that we don't focus enough on, honestly, how much we can always learn more, and the way we learn is different, which is what, Luma is really kicking butt on making that known, and finding a way to fight through that. And what you're doing is so admirable as well. So I love sharing this space with you. I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, Blake. Thank you
All right.
so much.